Sounds like polar guy too.
Yeah, okay. So we have another one of those sort of newish items based on our new statutory authority, agenda item number 58 involving Julie Moss. And are we gonna have staff report on this or consent calendar?
There is no staff report because this is simply one where consent calendar is recommending dismissal because the prerequisites were not met. As you'll note in the updated motions table, we added a motion number 12 to deal with consent calendar, both regular and exec session.
Perfect. Okay, so do we, I'm assuming no one wants to pull this off the consent calendar. So I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. Commissioner Hollister, I hereby move that the commission approve item number 58 on the executive session agenda as presented, which is a motion to dismiss. But
Thank you. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burt,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Okay, so I think first off, we have agenda item number 59 involving respondent Michelle Perry. And
I am admitting them now,
we're
Chair.
admitting that they're here today.
They're attending by team.
Teams, okay. There we go. All right, good morning, Ms. Perry. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Amber Hollister, the commission chair, and we're going to go ahead and proceed this morning with your matter. The way that this is going to unfold is we will invite staff to provide an investigatory report and summary, and then once that's concluded, we may have questions for staff. After our questions for staff are through, I'm going to turn to you and invite you to provide any comments you wish to provide. Because of the length of our agenda, I'm going to have to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. As you can probably see our book here, it's a bit of a brick. And then if we have questions for you, we'll ask them at that time. After we've gone through that process, we will make a motion and vote on whether or not to dismiss your matter or move it to a full investigation. We're not going to be deciding today whether or not there have been any ethics violations. This is really just about whether or not we want to investigate. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn to Investigator Marietta.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. This is Investigator Hillary Marietta. Agenda item 59 in your books is a preliminary review report from Michelle Perry, the town manager for the town of Lakeview. The complaint in this case alleges that Ms. Perry used her official position to financially benefit her brother-in-law and his dental business by getting the dental office hooked up to the geothermal water system. Ms. Perry also lives with her brother-in-law, Dr. Davis, and her sister. From the Secretary of State Business Registry, it appears that Dr. Davis's dental office may also be a business with which Ms. Perry's sister is associated. The complaint alleges that Dr. Davis is the only for-profit business that is receiving the benefit of the geothermal water system in the town of Lakeview. While information obtained during the preliminary review indicates that anyone can request to hook up to the geothermal system, it appears this was not a benefit that was advertised or known to the public. Because the geothermal option is less expensive than other alternatives and the geothermal system was not widely known to the general public, it appears that Dr. Davis may have only known about this option based on Ms. Perry's official position as town manager, and therefore avoided a financial detriment by using that system. Additionally, it appears Ms. Perry may have used her official position to provide a recommendation to her sister that financially impacted her sister in a business with which her sister is associated. As such, she may have been faced with a conflict of interest that would require disclosure. Should this case be moved to investigation, commission staff would seek to determine how Dr. Davis came to find out about the geothermal water system and whether Dr. Davis's dental office is a business with which Ms. Perry's sister is associated. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation. And additionally, the recommended action should also, on top of 040, say 120 sub 1, as indicated at the end of the preliminary review. I just, on the first page, forgot to add that.
Thank you for that summary, Investigator Marietta. Do we have any questions from other commissioners about this matter? not seeing any or sorry. go
No, I'm
ahead.
good.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
So seeing no questions, Ms. Perry, I'd like to invite you to make any comments you wish to make.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just want to state that Dr. Davis purchased this property in 2018 and found out about the geothermal hookup at that time from the real estate agent that sold him the property. And then at the time, the town planner, Janine Cannon, approved in that October of 2018 the plans, and that included the hookup to the geothermal system. And I was not brought in as the town manager until November 2019. So I had no part in explaining the geothermal system until much later in 2020 and 21. And that's when we hit through COVID. The project has been extended because of the COVID crisis, and he's just barely now finishing up the new build. So I turned over all of our geothermal over to our special projects person, and as it has always been, town council, public works, and special projects set all of the pricing for geothermal. I do live with my sister, but we live on 10 acres and I am in a separate dwelling. It's a mobile home that is on the property. But, you know, we do live at the same address. That is all. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Those sound like some really crucial facts. And I think you're just sort of bringing to light the fact that we have such a brief preliminary investigation period that there's oftentimes really important facts that we just haven't been able to gather. So thank you for sharing those with us. And I think if this does go to an investigation, I'm sure that our investigator will be in touch with you to verify those facts so that we get a full picture. You know, and this is not a full picture. That's the whole point of it, you know, being called preliminary. So, so thank you for that. And thank you for your participation. Do we have any questions for Ms. Perry from commissioners?
I also just want to say that Mr. McGowan could have come in at any time and asked to be hooked up to it at any time. He just elected to not do that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Well, are there, seeing no questions, I'm sensing that given these key facts, we need to have in the record, this might be a matter we need to move to investigation just so that we have that record. So I think we're ready for a motion.
I'm inclined to dismiss, just so you know where I'm at.
No, go ahead. Why don't you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I just believe what she has said based on the record that I've reviewed as well. I think we're going to end up there very shortly anyway. So let's shortcut this and dismiss. And so I guess I am prepared to make a motion. And so
Fiscum has his hand up. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, well, you mind if we hear from?
that's fine.
Commissioner Fiscum, would love to hear your thought.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a quick question pursuant to your discussion a moment ago, preliminary to Mr. Lindsay's potential motion. That is, if our investigator wouldn't mind, I would like her to summarize for us what she would be looking at in specific if we decided to move ahead with investigation. What is there left to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiscum. One of the things is, sorry, hold on, let me go back up to her. I think I'd want to, confirm the information. So I would want to talk to Dr. Davis myself. One other thing that Mr. McGowan told me that's conflicting with, and information with Ms. Perry told me was that he said he asked prior to Ms. Perry being the town manager to hook up to the geothermal system, was told no, and that person is not working for the town anymore, and that's very confusing to me. So I think I would want additional information to figure that out. And then the other thing was one of the witnesses that I talked to, he said that there's not a contract in place between the town and Dr. Davis, which is a little odd, and he has not paid his bill. So just seeing if there was any, benefit or why that was going on really. Why was that not addressed with anybody, so.
Does that answer your question? Here.
Thank you, Chair. That answers my question. I appreciate it.
And just to follow up on that, I understand those are good questions to ask, but I think they're unrelated to Ms. Perry, who came in after the fact. And that's why I'll make my motion to dismiss.
Well, unless someone else has a motion, I'm perfectly happy to have Commissioner Lindsay make the motion, because I'm looking around, no other volunteers.
Okay. Chair Holster, I hereby move to dismiss the complaint at the end of this investigatory phase against Michelle Perry, item number 59 on our agenda.
Thank you. Oh,
You said the end of this investigative phase?
Sorry, I hereby move to dismiss this complaint.
there we go. Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
I agree with Chair Hollister in the fact that I just think this is important to confirm facts, and we aren't making a decision at this point, but I do think there's information that's important to follow up on, so I'm declined to vote no on that motion and move forward with an investigation.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Any other comments from the commissioners? Oh, please.
I would just add that in addition to her comments on the dates, I found the interview with Mr. Fortune here pretty compelling in the fact that absolutely not, there was no benefit here. So for her reasons on the dates and then that interview, I'm going to be voting yes on the motion to dismiss.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments from the commissioners? I think this is not an easy matter to start our day off with. Clearly, as Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Lindsay have pointed out, with the addition of Ms. Perry's comments today, this does sort of seem like a matter that's headed towards dismissal. I think it's just about whether or not what our comfort level is with doing that at this early stage. Honestly, I'm a little on the fence myself. So, I certainly can see where you're coming from. So I think we'll just have to call the question. We'll see where we land.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
No.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fistum,
Aye.
Chair Hollister. Motion passes
Working on it.
8-1.
So Ms. Perry, what we've just done is dismissed your matter. So this is
you.
concluded and you'll get a letter confirming that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so next we have a group that's waived confidentiality.
That is correct, Chair Hollister. However, we're still working on getting them all online. And it has come to my attention that the respondent for agenda number 69, it's in the waiting room next door. So if you wanted to jump ahead to that one while we get the rest of the group together.
In 69 and 70, they haven't waived confidentiality. Oh,
Just 69
okay.
would be.
Oh, okay, there's no box
She's-
around that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
He is by herself.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take care of 69 then and leave everybody else in the waiting room.
She is, that is
Okay,
correct.
that's fair. Go ahead and invite them in and I'll just confirm that she's waiving confidentiality when they get here.
Oh, we need that flag you guys used to pass around on the House floor when only one person votes on one way.
The hat?
It was a flag, like, did you call it like the Liberty flag or something? Yeah, there was only one person who voted one way. 9-1, yeah.
Rare, you know.
It still happening.
Mhm. I saw it pop up on Twitter last session.
Good morning, welcome. I'm Amber Hollister. I'm the Chair of the Ethics Commission. Thank you for joining us today. So I understand, Ms. Bullen, that you have your spouse with you today, which is fine. I just want to confirm that you are waiving confidentiality.
Yes.
Okay, your spouse can be here. Terrific. So let me just explain how we're going to go about the hearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to invite our staff to summarize their preliminary investigation report. And then once they're done with that, we might have questions as a commissioner about the report itself.
Okay.
After we're done with that, I'm going to turn to you and invite you to make any comments you'd like to make. Because we have such a deep agenda today, I'm going to have to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay.
And so you're welcome to just share whatever you think we need to know. We might have questions for you. Sometimes that's the case because you tend, usually the respondent knows the facts better than we ever can. And then after we're done with that process, we will have a motion and might talk about the motion a little bit among the commissioners and we'll vote. And today we're either going to be voting to dismiss the matter or continue the investigation.
Okay.
So we're not making any decisions today about whether or not there was a violation. That's just not on the table.
Okay.
So, that's just it, to the extent that you feel a little stressed about that, this is not that day. So
Just nervous in front of a bunch of people. So.
yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, but we're pretty relatively easygoing group. So you're going to be okay. We'll get through this. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our staff report. It looks like Investigator Marietta is going to summarize.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. This is Investigator Hillary Marietta. Item 69 is a preliminary review report for Tracy Bullen, the Planning Commissioner for the City of Detroit. The complaint in this case alleges that Ms. Bullen, who owned an RV park in Detroit called Lakeview RV Park, was faced with a conflict of interest when she participated in discussion on limiting RVs in Planning Commission meetings and City Council meetings. During the City Council meetings, if Ms. Bullen was providing public comment as a private citizen and not acting in her official capacity as a Planning Commissioner, then she would not be faced with an actual or potential conflict of interest, regardless of whether the topic before the City Council could financially impact her husband, or Lakeview RV Park. Both Ms. Russell and Ms. Bullen indicated that Ms. Bullen did provide public comment on RVs during City Council meetings, but Commission staff was unable to locate additional information on either the specific comments Ms. Bullen made, or whether it was clear that she was making the comments as a private citizen rather than as a Planning Commissioner. Should this case move to investigation, Commission staff would seek to locate any recordings or additional information available to determine whether Ms. Bullen was acting as a private citizen when she's providing public comment. During the Planning Commission meetings, the discussion on limiting RVs could have a financial benefit for Ms. Bullen, her husband, or the business with which she's associated, because limiting the number of RVs permitted to park on a property could cause other RVs looking for a space, either seasonally or long-term, to then park at her RV park. Further, limiting the availability of places to park an RV in Detroit could allow Ms. Bullen to increase the price to park at her RV park. The ability to increase the price to park at her RV park also has the potential to increase the value of the RV park as it occurred there. Importantly, these potential financial benefits exist regardless of whether Lakeview RV Park had a wait list at the time of Ms. Bullen made the comment at the Planning Commission meeting. Additionally, in this case, the Commission could determine that a class exception applies by determining the class and whether that class is affected to the same degree. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Marietta. Do you have any questions from commissioners about the report?
I have a question, if that's okay. Tina Russell, who is that? And
She's the complainant.
I understand that, but what is her, she's a citizen, or what's her?
Yeah, I think I don't know if she lives in Detroit or Salem, or she has a vacation home in Detroit. Yep.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. I see no questions. I think it's your time to weigh in. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I've never been a part of a planning commission or anything like that before in my life.
Take your time.
I didn't receive any training for any of this. When I was appointed, I kind of was just here, show up. So these meetings that I went to were facilitated by COG, Council of Governments. So I was kind of relying on them to tell me what I should and shouldn't do. The Council of Governments actually had worked with me prior to being on the Planning Commission on the RV park. So they were aware that I had an RV park, and we actually discussed it several times in the 2 meetings that I attended. I was appointed for Planning Commission in May of 2022, and I sold my property in May of 2023. So I actually only attended five meetings, and 2 of those meetings, RVs were discussed. And in those 2 meetings, I had brought up the RV park because what I had done in those meetings was researching Oregon state laws and 26 other of the cities in Oregon's development codes to help. We lost everything in the fires up there, and I became on the Planning Commission because my husband and I are in construction, and I thought that volunteering my knowledge was going to help the city. And I inadvertently, because this was a topic being discussed, became volatile with a group of people up there because they own vacation homes and second homes. I became a target of harassment. And I ultimately had to leave the city, and I walked away from planning because of what was going on. I mean, we had Miss Russell's husband actually told one of us that he was going to put a cap in our head. So I had to walk away from volunteering and helping. I'm a giver. Once we rebuilt our park, I'm so sorry that I'm so emotional.
No, don't apologize. This is a lot.
Sorry.
You don't have to
With a lot of my crying. But once we rebuilt our park, I offered spaces for free just to get people back up in Detroit to their homes. If people were stranded, I would offer spaces for free. I never did this because I'm trying to benefit from anything. I moved to Detroit because I loved it, and that's where I intended to be. I didn't intend to be ran out from hate. And I just want to also say that the RV park that we owned had 13 spaces, and half of it was filled with my family who lost everything in the fire. There's 395 RV spaces in Detroit. My 13 was nothing. I didn't not do something on purpose, and I wasn't doing anything to gain anything. I never voted. I don't even know if my seat was official. I was voted in to take over for somebody else, and his seat expired in December. So I don't even know if I was officially a commissioner or anything because I don't know any of that stuff. I just rely on what everybody is telling me. But I promise I was not trying to gain anything other than help. And I wasn't trying to be deceiving or not transparent.
I appreciate that. And, let's get a few things really clear here. You've been through a traumatic event with fire, and it's completely clear to me that you are a person who wants to help her community, and you came to the commission in a spirit of service, and that, you really worked hard to do your best for your community. And this process is not about, saying any of that's not true. I mean, and so I want you to know that that is an honorable thing. And, you should certainly, we're all thankful for public servants who show up and volunteer. These ethics laws are pretty technical. And so what we focus on in this process and sort of our number one mission is just education. Because, we all want to do the right thing and this is hard. And so part of what we're doing is just trying to educate our community about where these standards have been set for us all. And so I want you to walk away still feeling really proud of your service. This is not meant to, take that away from you.
I have learned a lot from this. I've learned a lot from Hillary. I've learned a lot from stuff that I've been given, and in all of the planning commissions and all of the council meetings up there, nobody has ever offered a potential conflict of interest. So I actually have taken all of this information back to the planning commission, and I now have people putting conflicts of interests on the meeting. So I have learned some from this.
Well, and it sounds like you're giving back yet again, right? And helping educate the commission, even though you're not on it anymore. That's admirable. Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. So I'm going to turn to my fellow commissioners now to see if you have any questions for the respondent.
Yeah, I do, Chair
Yes,
Hollister.
please.
I echo what Chair Hollister said. Congratulations, welcome to public service. It's a kick in the gut to serve and people tear you down. So I'm sorry that this happened to you. I really am. And this is part of the learning experience. So congratulations. It's a good, quick learning experience as well. But again, I echo what she said, that thank you. And I was really disturbed to hear that this Miss Russell threatened about putting a cap in the head. That's really disturbing to me and tips me. I agree with the technical aspects, but at the same time, if someone were to, I would support a motion to continue the investigation to complete that education process. I think that's where it ended up. I think there's barely a slap on the head. At the same time, if one of the commissioners were to make a motion to dismiss, I would definitely vote for that as well.
Yeah, Commissioner Thompson.
You said you had help from the Council of Governments. Can you tell me a little bit about how that process went? And
Sure. When I brought my property, we bought it under false terms and it wasn't in compliance. And then when the fire happened, and everything burnt down, McCrae Carmichael, who is acting as a city planner's advocate for the Council of Governments, she went through the process with me. I had to go through land use stuff to make the property into compliance before I could rebuild. And so she walked me through that step and she was aware. And in the 2 meetings that I attended where RVs were talked about, we actually talked about that in the meetings. And she would address me and ask me different things of what, because the topic was the borderline of people, the property owners putting so many RVs on their property that it was creating unregulated RV parks. And so she would ask me what it would be to become a regulated RV park or some of the laws, the rules that I had to follow. So, and those things were discussed, and Detroit's very small. Everybody knows everybody. And I mean, I made it very, very aware, process.
thank you.
So I guess I'm not sure if I'm looking at council or staff with this, but I mean, I understand we have a potential class exception here, and the class exception would apply to the conflict of interest potentially. And then there's also a potential but-for issue. Is that right? Or is it only conflict?
Because she didn't have voting power on the planning commission, so it only
Only
be the
be-
potential conflict of interest issue.
So if we were to find that a class exception exists, then there would not be a conflict of interest.
Correct,
In this case. So can I just ask you a question about that? So you mentioned how many RV spots there were. What was that again?
So there's 3 RV parks in Detroit. I'm the smallest, or I was the smallest. I had 13 spots. There's one other RV park that was 20 spots and one that's 80 spots.
And then with the state parks and the county parks right around there, there's a total of 394-ish RVs. So, and I supported those as well. Like I had a social media that I boosted those RVs and RV parks and kept up to date on the state parks for people to recreate in as well.
And so the potential rule change that you were looking at did that only apply to RV park owners, or did it apply more broadly to any property owner within Detroit?
It was the residential property owners.
Residential.
And there was actually, the city council actually made a vote to amend their council rules. Council rules was you could have 2 RVs, and if 2 city councilors signed off, they could have 2 more for a total of 4 RVs. And this RV issue has been going on since 2017, I believe, before I even purchased in Detroit. And so they made a decision in July. So I had attended one meeting and they had already made a decision to limit the RVs to 2 instead of 4.
So if this rule were to pass, would it change how you were able to operate your RV park? Because you already have a certain number of slots because you have permitting for an RV park.
No, and the only other thing that I advocated what actually was you could only have an RV during the season. And I was actually advocating to let property owners have RVs year round. So I was trying to give the property owners back more use of their property for RVs.
But again, you already had that right for your RV park.
Yes. And I actually advocated for additional fees that would have affected me. I would have had to put, like bigger business license, maybe a fee for additional RVs and water sources.
Okay, well, Commissioner Fiscum.
You do.
Thank you, Chair. It sometimes takes me a moment to unmute because I need technology help, and everybody already knows that. With your indulgence, Madam Chair, I have a question for staff, and then I have a comment. My question for staff is one I often ask, others ask, which is, can you summarize again for me what it is that you would be looking at if we were, in fact, to move to an investigation beyond the preliminary review? What would the focus be?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Okay. It would just be further looking at the city council meetings where Ms. Bolin testified, during the city council meetings, but beyond that, that's it.
Thank you, staff. Chair, my comment is this. I am always very hesitant for the commission to get involved in what appears to be, quote, a local dispute, unquote, when a complaint may have been filed as a step of retaliation or to keep some dispute continuing to flow. That always gives me heartburn. And so as I make that point, I am left with mixed emotions about how to proceed today. So I would benefit from comments from my colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiscum. Any other questions or comments?
I'd be interested in hearing your comments on the class exception. I always appreciate Chair Hollister's high-level analysis.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Lindsay, for your unfounded faith in me. I obviously I'm drawn to the portion of the investigator report that references the class exception, the possibility of a class exception, and that is our responsibility as a commission to find whether or not that exists. Typically, I think that's something that we defer until the investigatory phase. But if it's, very clear, I think we still have the discretion to dismiss now. Based on what the respondent shared, I'm convinced that the class here would be all property owners within Detroit. And I guess I'm struggling with whether or not there would even be a conflict in this instance because the respondent already wasn't going to be directly impacted, it sounds like, by this change because she already had a permit that sort of allowed her to operate otherwise. So I guess that's where in my head, I'm thinking, well, if this is class exception, it seems like it's all Detroit property owners. And then, does it impact her to the same degree as other people? Well, if anything, it seems to impact her less. So I guess that's where my thought process is going. But because this is all very preliminary, it would, I think we would. There's still some uncertainty. That's the nature of the beast.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Can I make a comment?
Please
Yeah,
make a comment.
I think that's great. I think we know what Investigator Murrieta would investigate, and that would be comments actually made, written, reduced to writing. I think we've heard what she said, and so I'm prepared to move to dismiss. But my question is if we're going to move to dismiss based on class exception, do we need to declare that in the motion, or do we just move to dismiss?
Counsel?
Yeah. Okay.
So in order to decide a class exception, you have to go through the steps to determine that. So and again, I don't know if there's enough information in the record at this point in time because we don't have the laws that are at issue. We don't have what was examined at the Planning Commission where a decision or a recommendation or whatever the action was that was made. But you can dismiss without going through those steps.
Had we gone through the steps and determined it was a class exception, what would the motion be? Motion to dismiss because of a class exception? No.
So
Yeah.
So to go through the steps, you'd have to identify the class. And then the next step would be to assess the benefits or the detriments of that class as compared to the individual or the individual's business. And then you'd assess that and determine whether or not they're the same or similar.
And what would be the
impact.
process for making that determination? We hereby declare.
You would need evidence to support that in the record. So you would essentially have to go through and say, these are the reasons we find this is the class. You would find these are the benefits that we're finding within that class and assessing this.
So we'd state that and reduce it to writing.
I mean, you can
State it orally.
You could state it orally, yes, and it's part of the record. Again, I'm not sure there's enough in the record at this point in time to make that assessment. But if you want to just dismiss.
Right. No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out the process. Because if we orally made that determination, there was a class exception, at the end of the day, we would need to make some sort of motion.
I don't think it's a separate motion, actually. In the past, I think we haven't made a separate motion.
We would
finding
just
a class
determine that
exception.
orally, and then
Yeah.
we had moved to dismiss.
Right. I think that's how we've done it in the past, but yeah.
Well, I think you'd be faced with an investigative report that either tips one way or the other, and you either agree or disagree with that. And all of the stuff that Sean was talking about would be in that report. We just simply don't have that right here, but you have the discretion to dismiss this without making that determination. Because, I mean, I would sit here, you think the class is all the property owners, I might say not all property owners want to have manufactured homes on their, or RVs on their place. So like, I just used the market there. That's, as you drive in, it didn't burn down the fire. You probably wouldn't put an RV there.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be all the people that have RVs. And then I don't think the 395 is the number either, because you're counting state sites, the state and federal campgrounds around there that allow RVs. So I think she had a number of 80 and 20 and 13. So there's like 113 spots that we would probably look at, but we haven't done that in preliminary review. And so, I think trying to get to a class in this, I just think we're reaching right now because you don't have the fact. Now, if you want us to go into investigation, we're happy to give you those facts, and you may be able to make that determination after that investigation. But if you prefer not to do that, then you can move to dismiss.
Commissioner Burke has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Burke.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to commend Ms. Boland for volunteering and doing your public service. As was earlier said, it can sometimes be a minefield to walk through, and you stepped on a mine, it looks like, but I hope this does not make you less inclined to serve in the way you have. It sounds like that you are a capable public servant trying to do what is best for the folks. And I think if nothing else, this incident is a good maybe poster incident for the need for training. And you obviously, it sounds like you've testified that you haven't been trained on these issues. And my guess is that still, despite our very capable training unit, there are a lot of public officials out there like yourself that just want to serve the public and haven't been trained. And without that training, you're more inclined to step on a landmine as you have. On top of that, I should point out I'm not an attorney, as I like to say. I don't even play one on TV, but I try to consider a bunch of things. I think it does, as Commissioner Fiscum has said, this does sound like, as much as anything else, this is an internal squabble. We are disinclined to get involved with those kind of things. And when there is a borderline case like this is, I tend to want to go with the respondent, especially if they are someone like yourself that are trying to do a good job and use this as an opportunity to prompt you and the commission and maybe legislators to clarify some of these issues that resulted in this case sort of being on the borderline. But I don't know if I'm out of order, but with all of these issues together, I would like to make a motion to dismiss.
I'm fine with that, Commissioner Burke. Oh, Commissioner Thompson, just one moment. Yes.
Just to his motion, I would support his motion.
That he hasn't made yet?
Well, I thought he just did. Well, if he were to make it,
Okay.
I would support a
Should he
motion.
make it?
Should he make it? I would make I would
Made it.
support it. I would support it. I mean, Detroit's been through a gut punch. They had to completely rebuild the town. They did yeoman's work on that. And if a couple of I's weren't dotted or T's weren't crossed, yes, they need some education, but I feel like she's got it already. And I think that we have other things we should focus on. And what I think what kind of tips it over for me is that the city council ultimately made the decision on this. So I think we have other things we should focus our time on. This to me feels borderline, and I agree with Commissioner Burke that in that case, I'm inclined to go with the respondent.
Thank you for those comments. So for the record, Commissioner Burke, that was a motion to dismiss.
Affirmative.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we now have a motion on the table. Any discussion on the motion? Let's call the question.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
So what just happened, Ms. Boland, is that this matter's been dismissed. So that means you'll get a letter confirming the dismissal and the case will be closed. Thank you for joining us today and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're fine. Know that we're joining. We're starting.
Okay, I feel like my pace is off. We gotta. Till 5 o'clock. We gotta move this thing along. All right.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
I move to.
We are moving on to items.
We just
Before we had everyone online, we're working on admitting them.
Okay.
60 through 64.
64, thank you.
Okay, page 355.
All your cases.
Yeah. Online, they're online, and they're online. We're waiting for them to rejoin.
Okay. So good morning. Welcome to the Ethics Commission. I'm Amber Hollister. I'm the commission chair. And we're ready to get started on matters involving respondent Middlecoff, respondent Howell, respondent Leatham, respondent Bird, and respondent Weston. So welcome today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and invite staff to provide a summary of the preliminary review that they conducted. And then we might have questions of staff as a commission. There's sort of things we don't quite understand. After that, I'm going to invite each one of you to provide any comments that you want to make. Because of the fact that we have such a long agenda, I'm going to have to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. So we will sort of have a timer going. And if you see me sort of waving, it means you've reached the end of your time. And once we've heard from you, we'll go ahead and make a motion. Today, we're either going to be moving to dismiss this matter or moving to investigate it more fully. So those are the only options on the table. We'll either dismiss or we'll move to investigate more fully. We're not going to make any decisions today on whether or not there's been a violation. So that's just not on the table. So with that, I'm hoping you can all hear me. And please wave, or if I guess you wouldn't be able to hear me, so never mind. And I think we're ready to get started. It looks like Investigator Walker.
Thank you, Chair Hollister and Commissioners. For the record, this is Monica Walker, investigator for the Commission. Item numbers 60 through 64 in your meeting books are preliminary review reports for the 5 Commission members for the Southwood Park Water District. As all respondents have provided confidentiality waiver and the cases are the same, with the Chair's permission, I will present these cases together. The complaint in these matters concerns an executive session held by the district on May 31st, 2023. The complaint alleges that the district may have participated in an unauthorized executive session by not providing any advanced public notification of the executive session. Additionally, the district may have failed to properly announce or cite the reason for entering into executive session prior to the session being held. This preliminary review was open to determine if the respondents violated the executive session provisions of public meetings law. In staff's review of the meeting materials, documentation received, it appears that no notice of the executive session was provided in advance, nor does it appear that any statutory provision or authority for entering executive session was announced by the presiding officer prior to convening the session. Therefore, it appears the executive session may have been unauthorized in violation of ORS 192660 subsection 1. Additionally, information received during this preliminary review indicates that the district posted a belated notice sometime after the May 31st meeting, and this notice cited 192660 sub 2N VI as the reason to convene the session. This provision allows a public body to discuss information, review, or approval of programs relating to the security of generation, storage, or conveyance of water. From the information gained, however, it appears the district may have discussed matters that were not authorized by the statutory provisions cited, as the district appears to have held the executive session to meet with the operator, Highland Water Corporation, to discuss certain performance issues. As it is not clear that a discussion of performance issues would be authorized under the provision cited, the district may have discussed unauthorized matters during the May 31st executive session. Based on the information gathered, it appears the district may have failed to properly convene its May 31st meeting and may have discussed unauthorized matters in their executive session. Therefore, the reports that are in your meeting books recommends moving these cases to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Walker, for that report. So any questions from the commissioners about the report? Seeing none, we're going to go through the list here and invite you all to make comments individually. So we're going to start with respondent Whit Middlecoff. Mr. Middlecoff, would you care to make any comments to the commission?
Certainly. We I can speak on behalf of the board, but let them say their own piece. But we definitely don't dispute that we made an error in conducting the executive session without proper notice. As we'd mentioned in our statement, there was some uncertainty as to whether the key people from Highland Water would be available for the meeting. So we didn't want to have an executive session listed on our website and calendar that wasn't confirmed, and completely just a clerical oversight on our part. We acknowledge we won't let it happen again, and we'll definitely do our best to make sure that we follow all the procedures. With regards to the nature of our comments, I disagree. I think our discussions with Highland Water is all about the security and provision of water. We are a volunteer board that has absolutely no skill set in maintaining our water system, and we rely 100% on Highland to provide repairs, to collect the revenue from the sale of water, et cetera. So if I'm misrepresenting that relative to the definition of secure water supply from the state, then I apologize. But that, again, would have been our own naivete in regards to that. We rely 100% on Highland to make sure the water flows. So.
Thank you, Mr. Middlecoff. So thank you for your candor and certainly your good faith attempt to comply. I will say that our primary focus as a commission is education. And so, it sounds like through this process, we'll certainly have an opportunity to give you more resources and support on executive sessions. So thank you for joining us today. So moving on to Mr. Howell. Would you care to make any comments, Mr. Howell?
I would, thank you. Just to reiterate what our chair, Whit Middlecoff, just said, we're a group of volunteers. I have very little time to devote to this. This is a district that has 298 service homes that are served by the water district. We have difficulty getting people to serve. In 2019, there was a major change on the board, and those of us who agreed to serve bluntly received a water district in deep disarray with huge deferred maintenance problems. So we've had to deal with a lot of that. The complainant is the former chair of the water board that presided over the water board for about 25 years. Just for my own part, I was not aware that it was not properly announced. I rushed to these meetings from my busy job at work. I work full-time as a CPA. I rushed to these meetings. We hired an admin to help us cover the bases. This was an honest mistake. I'm a CPA with 32 years in public practice. I have an unblemished record on my CPA license. I serve on the Oregon Board of Accountancy Peer Review Oversight Committee, and I object very strongly to having an ethical complaint be recorded under my name for this matter. If it were up to me, had I seen this coming, I would have resigned from this board before this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howell, for your comments. Moving on, looks like Mr. Leatham is not with us. So Ms. Bird, would you care to make any comments?
Thank you. Yes, I would. I am a volunteer, and I do believe that this is an educational opportunity. I really don't want this on my record either, and I hope that we could take this as a learning moment and move forward. I agree with what Mr. Howe said. It was an administrative error, and I feel like our administrative assistant is now aware of the proper protocols for holding public meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Bird, for those comments. Ms. Weston, would you care to make any comments? Ms. Weston, you're on mute. There you go. No, you're not. Would you care to make any comments today? We should be able to hear you. It looks like you're off mute. If you'd care to speak. Ms. Weston, can you hear us? I guess that's a no. Okay. Well, I think we're going to need to proceed.
Not gonna send you.
We can't hear you, Miss Weston, because you're on mute, if you can hear us. Could you wave your hand if you can hear us, Miss Weston? I don't think she can hear us either. Well, unfortunately. I
Chair,
think we're gonna-
the screenshot of Ms. Weston, this is Mr. Fiscum, the screenshot shows her microphone being muted. So she appears to be in fact muted and she can't hear a thing any of us are saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiscum. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure this is a technical issue we're going to be able to solve here. And so we're going to need to proceed. So with that, do we have any questions of the respondents today, Commissioner? I'm not seeing any questions, so I think we're ready to go ahead
What's
and.
the next?
Yeah,
Well, if you could let us know the next steps.
of course. So what we're
Okay.
going to do next, I think, and I think Ms. Bird, you might have joined right after I gave a sort of procedural overview. So I just realized that. So what's going to happen now is we're going to have a motion. And there's two options before the commission today. We can either move to dismiss this matter, or we can move to investigate it more fully, because what was done was just a very brief preliminary investigation. And there's still some facts that are just, we haven't been able to discover. So we're not deciding today whether or not there's been an ethics violation. That's just not on the table. So we'll either dismiss or we'll move to investigate further. And I see your hand, Mr. Hall, but we're going to need to go ahead and proceed just because of the length of our agenda. So I think we're ready to go ahead and move forward.
Yeah, Chair Hollister, this is Vice Chair Lindsay. I have a motion to continue or move to investigate, I should say. And I want to make it clear to the commissioners here, that the water commissioners, that what I expect is that we're going to reduce the facts to writing. You've already said, my bad, we made a short little mistake, and it's probably going to end up with you agreeing to agree to have a little bit further education, and that's probably the end of it. So I hereby move to investigate item number 60, Charnal Middlecoff, and we'll do each one of these on a separate motion.
Thank you for that. Any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call the question on number 60.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell, Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 192.660 on item number 61 of the executive session agenda.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell, Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 192.660, agenda item number 62 on the executive session agenda regarding Eric Leatham. Thank you.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell, Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 192.660, agenda item 63 regarding Kelly Bird.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell, Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of RS 192.660 regarding agenda item 64, Sue Weston.
Thank you. Call the question.
Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
Commissioner Mason?
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscom?
Aye.
Commissioner Burke?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey?
Aye.
Chair Hollister?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Yes.
I'd just like to say something real quick while the folks are on line is that just so there's no confusion, what we just voted on was to investigate possible violations of public meetings law. And this is the Ethics Commission, but these are not ethics violations. This is public meetings law. We have 3 areas of authority: public meeting law, of course, ethics, and lobby law. So I just want to be really clear with the folks. That's what we're looking at.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that is very important. And I think I referred to it as an ethics violation before, so we'll scratch that. We're only talking about public meetings law. So what we've done today is we've just voted to allow a further investigation of the public meetings issue. I think there are some issues identified by Mr. Middlecoff around the nature of the discussion, for instance, that we'll want a little bit more information about. So our investigator will be in touch with you to proceed with that process. Thank you for joining today, and thank you for your patience with the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ron.
Good clarification.
Yeah, it's important.
CPA.
Are you gonna say goodbye to them? They're still on there.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is everybody doing okay break-wise? Be okay to proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on to 65 through 68. Looks like they all waive confidentiality. It's just 2 people.
That is
4 matters.
2 matters.
Sorry, 2 matters. Four matters, 2 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are on the same phone number.
Oh,
So we
okay.
are admitting them now.
Okay. Excellent. They're in.
They are now in, yes.
Good morning. You've reached the Ethics Commission meeting. Do I have Sheila and Jack Jasperson on the line?
Yes, you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Terrific. This is Amber Hollister. I'm the chair of the commission, and we're ready to proceed to consider these matters involving both of you. We understand you've waived confidentiality. So I just want to give you a little thumbnail of how we're going to proceed today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a staff report on one of the matters. And then I'm looking, you want to just do them separately, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the staff report on one of the matters. And if the commission has questions about that report questions to staff about that report, we'll go ahead and ask them. And then after we're through with that initial conversation, I'll invite you to go ahead and make any comments you want about that report. I'm going to ask you to try to keep your comments separately. I think that'll be easier. So if you want to make some comments about the first report, we'll invite you to do that. I'm going to need to limit your comments to 3 minutes just because we have a very long agenda today. Once we hear your comments on that first matter, I'll go ahead and invite commission discussion about a motion. The 2 things we'll consider today are whether or not to just dismiss the matter or whether to investigate it further. We're not looking at finding any kind of violation today. That's just not on the table. So we'll either dismiss or we'll vote to investigate further because we need more clarification of the facts. So we'll go through that process, then we'll have a vote. And then once that's through, we're going to sort of start all over again and do it again for the next matter. We'll be repeating ourselves a little bit, and thank you for your patience with that. Do you have any questions about that process?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and request the staff report on agenda item numbers 65 and 66.
Thank you, Chair Hollister and Commissioners. For the record, this is Monica Walker, investigator for the Commission. Agenda items 65 and 66 in your meeting books are preliminary review reports for ethics cases involving Jack Jasperson, former code enforcement officer and planning commissioner for the City of Weston, and Sheila Jasperson, city reporter for the City of Weston. As the respondents have provided a confidentiality waiver, with the chair's permission, I will present these cases together. The complaint alleges that Mr. and Mrs. Jasperson may have violated the use of office and conflict of interest provisions by participating in actions, decisions, or recommendations in their roles as public officials for the City of Weston for personal gain by submitting an application for a fence permit without first having followed customary processes for submitting a plan, application, or an authorization request for a fence. In addition, they may have done so without proper disclosure of a conflict of interest. From the information gathered, it appears the Jaspersons may have used their public positions to obtain a fence permit without following proper procedures and getting the permit approved by the Planning Commission or City Council. The Jaspersons may have also worked together to approve the fence permit on their own as a way to avoid additional costs or processes that would normally be required. Additionally, there is no evidence that either declared a conflict of interest. Because of Mr. Jasperson's role as a planning commissioner and code enforcement officer, he appears to have had some oversight over code compliance at the time the permit was submitted. And given that Ms. Jasperson appears to have reviewed and approved the fence permit, they may have saved the cost of additional consulting that may have been needed by the city. This likely could have created a financial benefit or avoided a financial detriment for them and makes it unclear as to whether the approval criteria was met, such as vision clearance requirements for putting up the fence. Based on the information received during this preliminary review, it appears there is a substantial objective basis in this case to believe that violations of the prohibited use of office and conflict of interest statutes may have occurred. Therefore, the reports that are in your meeting books recommends moving these cases to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Walker. Do we have any questions for staff from commissioners? Seeing no questions, I'd like to invite the respondents to make some comments, and I'll leave it up to you how you divide the time.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Jack Jasperson. I guess I first want to address you, Madam Chairman, and the council. In my opinion, there was no violation. The city recorder, which happens to be my wife, sent a very detailed, and I'm guessing you all received that, a very detailed description of what the city of Weston's SOPs, procedures, processes, and protocols are for a type 1 fence permit. And as a citizen, I feel like I deserve to be treated as any other citizen. My role on the Planning Commission has no bearing on this, as the Planning Commission does not see nor approve or review type 1 fence permits. And as a 5-hour-a-week code enforcement officer, my job was to enforce municipal codes, not land use codes. So the 20 fence permits prior to ours that were issued, we do not have in our city. Our city is guilty of not having a follow-through process to go back and inspect said fences to make sure they follow the proper guidelines. So had this been Mr. Jones down the street as the code enforcement officer, I would never be involved in looking at their fence prior to nor after building. So in my opinion, that doesn't fall into this equation the way Weston, in our 700 people town, we don't have procedures and SOPs for that. And as a city recorder, my wife followed exactly to the letter, to the T, every single thing that she has done with all 20 fence permits prior to me and the 3 after me. And I just wanted to make sure that I made that very clear. And I guess that's all I have, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Jasperson. Ms. Jasperson, do you have anything to add on that?
First of all, thank you for allowing us to attend and be heard. I apologize, I'm a little bit emotional. The only thing that I would add is that I'm sorry, I attempted to follow all of the rules that I thought that I was supposed to follow. And had I known that I was supposed to do a written conflict of interest, I would have taken the steps to do that with the mayor and council and put it on the agenda or whatever steps I was supposed to take. I was unaware that I was supposed to do that. And just please know that if I would have known, I would have done that. I don't have anything else to add.
Madam Chairman, Madam Chairman, if I just might add on, if my 3 minutes, maybe the clock is running slow. Our city council is all by volunteer, and the majority of them are in their 80s, and so it's not common practice for them to review anything like this other than the report that the city recorder gives to the council every month about permits issued. But because we're on the main street, our public works people and the mayor were made aware that we had obtained a fence permit and were putting up the fence, and they stopped by each and every one of them many times. They were like, "Oh, Jack, that's looking good, and what are you doing there?" So I just want to be very clear that transparency, I feel like, was there, and that's all. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for those comments. So, certainly it sounds like you both are very conscientious individuals, and we're working hard to try to do the right thing. Certainly the primary mission of the commission is education about these laws. And so, that's part of what this process is about. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and invite commissioners to ask any questions they might have of you. Questions for the respondents? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay. So at this point, we're going to turn to a motion. Do we have a motion? And we could take them, we're taking them separately, right? So we can take Mr. Jasperson, agenda item number 65 first.
I don't have a motion right now. I'm still thinking through this. So.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners or motions? Commissioner Fiscom,
Madam Chair, my standard question, if you don't mind, of staff is, can you summarize for me again what exactly it is we would be looking at if we move to investigate this further? If I have misread something or failed to remember, I apologize. Just a quick summary would be helpful. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Fiscom. Staff, I would obtain and review additional documentation on the city's actual application processes and the criteria actually for obtaining a fence permit. In order to ascertain whether the Jaspersons violated the use of office provisions, of course. And then additionally, I would confirm that if they did receive a financial benefit or avoided detriment, and then whether or not they have disclosed any conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Investigator Walker. So with that,
I'm prepared to make a motion unless someone else is prepared. Okay. So I hereby move to investigate agenda item 65 for possible violations of RS 244-040 sub 1 and 244-120 sub 1 sub C. And to make it clear to the Jaspersons, purpose, and to the commissioners, purpose of this is I like the crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and I think that's what this investigation would complete here. And that's the reason why I'm making that motion. Of course, there is no decision of any violation at this point.
thank you for that, Vice Chair Lindsay. So any discussion on that motion to continue the investigation? I do think that these procedures are complex, and so I would appreciate some more clarity on the facts and the processes at stake. I have a feeling our respondents know them a lot better than we do, and we need to do some catch up. Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair Hollister. I have a question for staff. Is our would we have to make a finding, or maybe this is for council? Do we have to make a finding that Mr. Jasperson had oversight of the fence permit process in order to determine that he had a duty to declare a conflict of interest and that he also would violate the financial benefit laws as well? It seems that he's saying he didn't have any oversight in his code enforcement role. Is that something that we would be investigating further?
Want to take that, council?
I can't. So I think there's two roles he had. One is the planning commissioner and one is the code enforcement officer. My understanding of the code as written is that the planning commission gets reference notice of the fence permits. So there is some sort of oversight role there that needs to be further investigated related to that. But also, yes, I think we would also look at the other piece as to what comes within the jurisdiction of the code enforcement officer and whether or not any actions or decisions were made in either of those capacities that allowed for a conflict or a need for a conflict declaration.
Thank you, council. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Payne?
Yes, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell.
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 2440401 and 2441201C regarding agenda item 66 and Ms. Jasperson.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing any, so let's go ahead and call the question.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell.
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
So we've just concluded, for the Jaspersons, we've just concluded reviewing the first two matters. And what we've done is we voted to investigate. I think we need to get a better idea of just some of the underlying facts because it's fairly complicated here. So our staff will be in touch with you if she has further questions about that as she gathers information. So now we're going to move on to agenda items number 67 and 68. And it looks like Investigator Murrieta, or no, it moved over to Investigator, Myers is going to provide a summary.
Thank you, Chair Hollister, Commissioners. So in 2022, the Jaspersons purchased and opened a business. It's like a coffee kiosk of some sort called Beaver Buzz. And they located it 2 weekends a month on property owned by the Memorial Hall, not the city. They paid $100 a month to have this on that property, open on these 2 weekends a month. They paid for their own electricity or generator and so forth. The city of Weston has an event every year. I believe it's in April called Pioneer Days. And the organization running it, it's located in a large park. The organization has food trucks, but they did not want to locate it there because the generator that they would be running makes a lot of noise and would interfere with the music and the other events. So in a public comment section of a city council meeting, my understanding is that Jack Jasperson asked the city council if he could locate it in this smaller park a little way down the road. City council said yes. They had it there for the Pioneer weekend, great success. And in a subsequent meeting, Mr. Jasperson again asked the city council if they could locate it there permanently. The city council approved in a series of meetings, approved having Beaver Buzz located permanently in this park owned by the city. They also approved paying for running electricity to the park and approved installing security cameras out on the park's perimeter where this Beaver Buzz coffee kiosk was. The complaint in this case, the questions raised are, did Mr. and Mrs. Jasperson have conflicts of interest or use their positions to obtain a financial gain that they would not otherwise have? What in terms of Mr. Jasperson, he resigned as the code enforcement officer at the June meeting, which was the same meeting where the city council approved the permanent location for Beaver Buzz. But it was Mr. Jasperson who, both with the initial Pioneer Days request and the second permanent request, who, according to the response, made those requests in the public comment period. As my report indicates, the question in terms of him is, would any other member of the public have an opportunity to ask the city council to locate their business on city property and have the city pay for electricity and security for only $100 a month? It seems unlikely, but that is one thing with him that we would explore. Additionally, with Ms. Jasperson, she's the city recorder, as I believe she just noted. The council is city council is elderly and rely on her to prepare the agendas, present the agendas to them of what they're dealing with. We would need to examine to what extent Ms. Jasperson was involved in bringing the potential placement of the Beaver Buzz to the city council. She acknowledged in the response that even though the city council at the June meeting had approved locating it in the park, she spoke to the mayor to suggest that they bring it back up at the July meeting. She indicated so that there would be transparency. So to the extent that we have some additional questions, I would speak with the council members and interview them, determine to what extent that Ms. Jasperson had spoken with any of them outside of the public meetings, and whether there were any conflict disclosures.
Thank you for that summary, Investigator Myers. Any questions? And actually, I'm going to preempt Commissioner Fiscom's question, ask you if this matter went to investigation. What would you be seeking to discover?
In terms of Mr. Jasperson, I would like to listen to any audio recordings of the meetings and probably interview the mayor or other city council members to determine, if we can, whether other members of the public would have those same opportunities. And then also in those interviews, I would seek to determine whether there were any other actions or conversations with Ms. Jasperson outside of the 3 public meetings that we're aware of.
Thank you for that. Any additional questions from commissioners? Okay, seeing no questions, I think we're ready for a motion.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Excuse me. So Mrs. and Mr. Jasperson, we've reached the point in the conversation where I'm going to invite you to speak regarding this matter. So regarding the placement of the coffee cart on city property, would you care to provide comments?
Madam Chairman, Jack Jasperson. Before I make comments on the Beaver Buzz situation, I would like to ask a question before my time starts of the process. Would that be appropriate to ask a brief question at the moment, or would I be allowed at the very end? Because
That's
weighing
fine if
on
you,
me.
you're welcome to ask a question. I might end up deferring the answer to staff, but
Understood.
but please feel free.
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to stay professional and not emotional, but I feel like if I don't say this, I will regret saying it. So I'm gonna just let it go. I'm having a hard time understanding the process of this ethical board and accusations, and I feel like that any citizen can make a complaint or an allegation without finding, and then you're guilty until the guilty proves themselves innocent. And so we went through that process, and the two investigators that have presented have absolutely everything down to the T that we had to take time off work to prove our innocence. And now when it becomes public, if the same finding for the beaver buzz is of the fence, that there appears that there could possibly be a violation, and we need to move to further investigate on top of the investigation that's already been done, it will be made public. And this individual who is causing the stalking and the harassment is going to take that information, because she gets to have that by law, and she's going to put it on Facebook. And this whole thing is just driving me crazy. So I guess I would just want to verify that at least with the fence, y'all voted, and I respect the vote. There's going to be a further investigation, repeating the time that we've already spent to prove our innocence, and that's going to be made public on the website, and the individual that filed the complaint is going to get a copy of that to do with what they will. And so is that correct?
So I'm going to defer to Executive Director Burson on your question.
So,
Yes,
a
ma'am.
couple of things. First of all, after today, everything that's been done becomes public. It's
Yes,
only
sir.
confidential during the preliminary review period. And what's happened up to this point has been a preliminary review. And it's essentially just a cursory overview of the matter. And then what's before the commission today is that they either make a decision to either move into investigation, which is a 180-day process, or can be up to 180 days. And like I say, that is a full investigation, or they vote to dismiss. And if it's voted to dismiss, it would end today. However, that preliminary review report is public, actually, as soon as we leave our executive session in talking about it. So I just want to be clear that whatever the commission does here, the commission staff does, it all becomes public. So nothing stays confidential. And you're right, not only does the complainant have a right to the preliminary review report, any citizen in Oregon has that right. And you were also correct in the beginning when you said that any citizen, in fact, the statute is very clear that any citizen can complain about a public official. It's one of the hard things about being a public official is we are judged by the many. So,
Yes, sir.
So what would happen today if the commission, they have moved the first item forward, and so we will do a full investigation on that, and we will include you folks in that investigation. Right now, they're looking at the second matter around the coffee kiosk, and they'll be discussing that today. And if they decide to move that forward, that also will go into a full investigation, of which you'll be back before the commission within that 180 days. And at that time, they'll actually make a decision whether it's a violation. Today, there's no decisions made on violations. All it is making that, do we go further into a formal investigation with the information we got from the cursory overview we did in the preliminary review. And I understand you think there's two investigations, but we are also required to operate with what the legislature and the governor has given us in statute. And so this is the process that they want the commission to do. And so that is the process that we complete each time.
Thank you for that
Yes, sir.
summary.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Fiscum, I noticed that you had a comment or a question, so I'm going to turn to you Before I go back to the Jasperson.
Chair, thank you. I don't know what, I have a lot to say, except the following one to associate myself with Mr. Burson's remarks. What our commission does is implement the state of Oregon statutes. And so that includes specific issues on when matters become public after they have by statute been private in the sense of preliminary reviews, at least for a while. And then I would also add that the reality in Oregon is that ethics issues involve a complaint-driven process. Anybody in Oregon is allowed to make a complaint under Oregon law. Our staff first goes through an analysis to make sure that a complaint is not just and only frivolous, which is possible, but once that decision is made, then the matter comes to us in the way it comes. And I understand that that can cause frustration on the part of those who appear before us, especially when a complaint might be related to a local squabble, dispute, or a misunderstanding of some sort. But that is, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the reality we face. That's all I wanted to say, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bisco. So now I'm going to turn to the respondents and invite you to make any comments. And so we're going to restart that 3-minute clock now, and you're welcome to share that time however you see fit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you for what you said. And it is unfortunate. And I understand that that is the law and you have a job to do. It is unfortunate that city squabbles in a town of 700 people can have direct impact on an individual's life that lives and does everything for the community, every event, everything. And so it is unfortunate. And it's not your cross to bear, it's ours. I would just like to say that if said citizen or any other citizen wanted to have a complaint or an ethics a situation looked into for either one of these cases, I believe that should have been directed pinpoint to the city council and the city, because as city workers, city volunteers, we can only go off of the guidelines and the SOPs that we're given. And I feel like the burden ultimately falls on the elected city officials. And so again, this was pinpointed at us, as many things in this town are, from this one individual, and we're handling that legally the way we need to. And that's not your cross to bear. I don't have anything that I would like to add, because I feel like if I tried to explain the beaver buzz, A, it would take me more than 3 minutes, and B, I feel like you guys will do your due diligence, and I respect that, to further it for investigation. I just want to thank you for your time and apologize that we all have to even be here right now, because it should have been handled citywide in a different way. And our city does need a lot of work with our guidelines, our SOPs, and where it's been run for years a little hillbillyish. And I don't feel like Sheila and I should take the fall for that, but it is what it is. And I thank you guys for your time, and I have no further comment.
Thank you, Mr. Jasperson. Ms. Jasperson, did you have anything you'd like to add? I think we have about a minute left.
No, at this point. No, I believe you submitted everything we need. If they have any questions, I'll answer whatever's asked of me, but no, not at this time.
Thank you for that. So at this point, we are going to go ahead and have a motion on items number 67 and 68. Yes.
Question for them.
Please. Oh, sorry. Question from Commissioner.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Jasperson, question, who is Don Abbey?
Yes, sir. So this individual is a neighbor that lives kitty corner on our main street across from us, and she and her husband have lived there for like 8 years, and there's been an ongoing situation that I didn't want to have influence anything. She's a citizen of Weston that has issues with my wife and with us, and it's a lengthy deal from us being Oregon State Beaver fans to them being WSU fans, and it's been a crescendo that has been building for 8 years, and they're not involved in the city, they don't volunteer for anything. It was just in my humble opinion, an opportunity for her to strike out at us, and she chose this direction, and so that's all
Thank
I
you
have.
very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chair Hollister, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Let's have a motion.
Yeah, Chair Hollister, a statement before I make the motion. I'm going to be making a motion to investigate. And I agree with you, Mr. Jasperson, that we need to go through the motions here, but I come to a different conclusion than you. Yes, anybody can raise and bring a complaint, but also it also allows breathing room and gives you a chance to be vindicated as well. And so going through these motions actually is a benefit to you in some instances because the facts will be teased out, they will become public, and at the end of the day, you may be vindicated and you can make that publicly known as well. So I don't think it's one directional there. So I'm prepared to make a motion, and I will make the motion. I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 2440401 and 2441201C regarding agenda item 67 regarding Sheila Jasperson.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I'm torn on this one. I feel like they made a request at the public comment portion of a city council meeting, whether or not, and then the city council then voted to accept their request and make the upgrades to the park. Whether or not that was the right call I don't feel like that's my decision to make. I mean, they made the request, the city council granted it. That's outside my purview. So I understand Commissioner Lindsay's point about vindication and maybe bringing this to conclusion with an investigative report will do that. So I'll support his motion. I'm very torn. I feel like this is, I feel like they made the request publicly and the city council voted to do it. Whether that was the right decision for the town is not my call to make. So.
Thank you for those comments. And looks like Commissioner Fiscum.
Chair, I would just echo Mr. Thompson's comments as to being torn on this one. I'm prepared to support the vice chair's motion. I have a misgiving here, however, that we are, again, as happens on occasion, becoming involved in a local squabble, local tension that even dates back to football games, et cetera. So that gives me some pause. At the same time, I'm prepared to support the vice chair's motion that in the end, vindication may be possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiscum, for those comments. Any other comments on the motion before we vote? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call the question.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Commissioner Burke, we didn't hear you. You want to give us a signal? We're still not hearing you, Commissioner Burke.
Oh.
A thumbs up from Commissioner Burke. It's an aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Nay.
Chair Hollister,
Aye.
motion passes 8-1.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, and thank you, Mr.
As well.
Yeah, thank us. We're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 68.
Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 2440401 and 2441201C regarding Jack Jasperson, agenda item 68.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Burke. Who's up?
An aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell, Commissioner Mason,
Nay.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Chair Hollister,
Aye.
motion passes 8-1.
So where we are, Mr. and Mrs. Jasperson, is we've gone ahead and voted to investigate this matter further. I think I can, speak for our staff and that they've certainly collected information from you and you're not going to need to go through that again with them. That's already part of the record. So I just want to assure you of that because your time is valuable and we really do appreciate your participation up to this point. We will be in touch with you about next steps. And please feel free to ask any questions that you have about the procedure here. We really do want you to feel comfortable and understand what's happening. And our staff is great at sort of walking through that. So just to let you know, those questions are welcome and please don't be afraid to ask them. So with that, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairman and Council. And again, I appreciate you. My wife and I do, even though she can't speak right now. And I apologize if we're taking up your time. And I look forward to going forward and having the clarity come out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Peace.
Do we want a 5-minute break, folks? How are we doing? You guys all looked locked in. On the phone, would you like a break? Okay.
But I'm fine taking a break.
All
too.
right. We're gonna march through then.
All right.
And I'm not trying to be cruel here, so speak up. It looks like we've got number 70 in the online. So let's go ahead and proceed to number 70.
They are in the room. Yes.
Okay. Miss Wade, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello, this is Amber Hollister. I'm the chair of the commission, and we're here today to hear this matter on our agenda. And we're glad you could join us. I just want to walk you through how this is going to go. So basically what we're doing today is we're going to have our staff just summarize their preliminary investigation report. And we as commissioners might have questions of staff, so we might ask them at that time. And after that process, I'm going to turn to you and invite you to make any comments that you might want to make about the complaint. And I'm going to have to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes just because we have a very long agenda today. And we might have questions for you after your comments. Sometimes, the facts we're not quite following, we might need some help on that. So after we ask you questions, we'll move forward to consider a motion. And that's just where we decide what we're going to do next. There's only 2 options on the table today. We can either vote to dismiss this matter, in which case everything just sort of ends, or we could vote to investigate further. And sometimes we do that because we just don't have enough time to collect all the facts and we need a little more time. There's not going to be any decision today about whether there was a violation of the ethics rules. So that's just not on the table. We're only going to vote to dismiss or to investigate further. So with that, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. So if we could have Investigator Walker give us our summary.
All right, thank you, Chair Hollister and Commissioners. For the record, this is Monica Walker, investigator for the Commission. Agenda item number 70 in your meeting books is a preliminary review report for an ethics case involving Glenna Wade, board member for the Christmas Valley Rural Fire Protection District. The complaint alleges that Ms. Wade may have participated in discussions to promote her husband as a volunteer firefighter and as interim fire chief for the district, and that she may have done so without properly declaring a conflict of interest. From the information gathered and per the report in your books, Ms. Wade may have been met with an actual conflict of interest at several board meetings held because matters being discussed and under consideration at these board meetings involved her husband's submission of a volunteer application to a compensated grant position and his appointment as interim fire chief. The materials received indicates that Ms. Wade participated in these discussions and made suggestions as to the assigning of shifts and the initial monthly salary to be given to the grant program volunteers. As any discussions or votes on such matters could have a financial impact on her husband, Ms. Wade may have violated the use of office provisions. Additionally, although Ms. Wade abstained from the vote to appoint her husband as interim fire chief, there is no evidence to reflect that Ms. Wade disclosed an actual conflict of interest. Because of this, Ms. Wade may have violated the conflict of interest provisions. Also, as a member of the board, Ms. Wade may have engaged in the direct supervision of her husband in violation of the nepotism provisions, when she made recommendations as to the assigning shifts and the initial monthly salary to be given to the grant program volunteers, and her involvement in the appointment of her husband as an interim fire chief, a position which is supervised by the board in which Ms. Wade is a member. Finally, it should be noted that the commission had a previous case involving Ms. Wade in 2020, which concerned Ms. Wade's failure to disclose conflicts of interest and the use of her official position to obtain a financial benefit for relatives. This case was closed with a stipulated final order that provided for a letter of education in lieu of a civil penalty. It appears there is substantial objective basis in this case to believe that violations of the use of office, conflicts of interest, and nepotism statutes may have occurred. Therefore, the report in your reading books recommends moving this case to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Walker, for that summary. Any questions from members of the commission about this matter? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So at this point, Ms. Wade, I'd like to invite you to make comments. And as I mentioned previously, we're going to need to limit your comments to 3 minutes, just given the length of our agenda.
Thank you. First, I'd like to state that this complaint is a retaliation complaint, basically. In no way, shape, or form did I have anything to do with the hiring of my husband as interim chief, nor the salary that went with it. The conversation I had as far as the volunteer firefighters being paid was after hiring of my husband had died on the floor and no one was hired. It was simply a suggestion for future reference, and it went nowhere as well. Although the minutes do not clearly stated, and the minute taker has been now advised that it needs to be mentioned in the minutes every time I state it, I start our meetings by saying, I have a conflict of interest. My husband is the chief. No one essentially manages the chief. The chief sort of manages everything else. And nor have I ever participated when something like that was needed. I do abstain with prejudice from every conversation, even pertaining to him. And as I said, it has now been directed that every time I say it, it needs to be put in the minutes. It is an essential part of the minutes. And that simply wasn't happening. And the way that Mr. Strong knew that I had a previous violation was because I stated it that way. I stated conflict of interest. I do not want to go there again. So therefore, here's my conflict statement. And I basically state the case that had happened before.
Thank you, Ms. Wade, for those comments. I do think those are important facts, and I think that's something that could be addressed and incorporated if we vote to continue this investigation. So thank you for sharing those with us. Does anyone on the commission have questions for Ms. Wade? I'm not seeing any questions. Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah. Great. Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of 244-0401, 244-1202, 244-177, and 244-179 regarding Glenna Wade, agenda item 70. And I agree that I think through this investigative procedure, we can nail those points down and resolve it fully.
Thank you for that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Aye.
Commissioner Newell?
Aye.
Commissioner Mason?
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum?
Aye.
Commissioner Burt?
What's that?
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Chair Hollister?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
So Ms. Wade, what we've just done is voted to continue the investigation. I do think our investigator will be in touch with you, and that will give you an opportunity to officially share the facts you shared with us and make sure our record is complete. So thank you for joining us today, and our staff will be in touch.
Perfect, thank you.
Are we headed next? Going to one and
71. The attorney and the respondent are online. Sorry, I was removing this way. Yes, so 71. The attorney and the respondent, I'm letting in.
Okay. Good morning. This is Amber Hollister. I'm chair of the Ethics Commission. I understand we have the respondent Kurt Kruger on the line, as well as his counsel Emerson Lennon.
Yes, this is Emerson Lennon. I am online.
Terrific. So what we're going to do today is consider agenda item number 71. And what we'll do is we'll start with a staff summary of the preliminary investigation. Once that staff summary is through, commissioners may have questions of staff. So we'll go ahead and ask all of our questions. And then at that point, I'll turn to either counsel or Mr. Kruger, if he'd like to speak to us directly, to make any comments about the matter that you believe are appropriate. Because of the length of our agenda, I am going to need to request that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I certainly leave it up to the two of you how to best do so. We might have questions for you after you make your comments. And then at that point, we'll go ahead and proceed to a motion. Today, we can either vote to dismiss this matter outright, or we can vote to further investigate the matter. So just to be clear, there's no vote today about whether or not a violation has occurred. That's just not on the table. Sometimes in factually complex cases in particular, we do vote to continue the investigation because we just need more time to collect information. So with that, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. And Investigator Murrieta, please share your staff report.
Great, thank you, Chair, Commissioners. This is Investigator Hillary Murrieta. Agenda item 71 in your books is a preliminary review report for Kurt Kruger, former executive manager for the public infrastructure team for the Portland Bureau of Transportation. The commission opened the preliminary review based on a news article published in June of 2023 by Oregon Live. The article states, Kurt Kruger, executive manager of the Transportation Bureau's public infrastructure team, commuted in a city-owned white Ford Focus between March 2021 and April 2023, while also giving rides to his child, racking up 8,500 miles. The complaint in this case was open on concerns that Mr. Kruger was using his official position to avoid a financial detriment, specifically that he was using his official position through which he had access to a city vehicle to use for his own personal errands and outside employment performed during work hours. Mr. Kruger used the city vehicle to commute to and from work, to travel to his daughter's public high school, where he would coach JV volleyball and to run personal errands such as to the grocery store. And Mr. Kruger admitted to using the city vehicle for his personal use. Despite Mr. Kruger's claims that his supervisors were aware of his personal use of the vehicle, Mr. Kruger has not provided information that he followed the city policies for approval of his personal use of the vehicle. Through use of the vehicle, he avoided having to pay for fuel, maintenance, parking, and possibly additional car insurance. While Mr. Kruger indicates that he sometimes paid for fuel out of his own pockets, in the exhibit provided, it appears he did that about half the time, meaning the city still had to pay for the other half. Additionally, when Mr. Kruger worked as a volleyball coach at his daughter's high school during his work hours, it appears he used his official position for financial gain. This opportunity was only available but for his position with PBOT. Again, he was faced with possibly a conflict of interest, and there is no indication that he ever notified his appointing authority in writing of his conflict of interest. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Murrieta. Do we have any questions from commissioners about the staff report? We don't have any questions at this time. So now I'm going to turn to counsel or Mr. Kruger to share your thoughts, and certainly whomever wishes to speak. feel free to do so.
Good morning, commission members. Thanks for spending a little time with me this morning. I'm sure you have a busy agenda, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. I just want to be honest and open with the commission. Been commuting to the building that I'm sitting here working in for the last 12 years. I commute by motorcycle on a regular basis throughout the year. Did so during the first year of COVID. This building I'm in is owned by Portland State University, and after about the first year, the parking garage was literally closed down to the public. And so my ability to come and access the building by my personal vehicle was taken away because there was nobody here present to operate the garage. The city cars that are housed in this building were the only thing that still had access to the building. And I was in here providing service to the city and my team, trying to keep the doors of the city open as best as I could from my vantage point. And so I was using the vehicle open and transparently, letting everybody know it, to come in and access the building, to do a lot of extra work during COVID to help operate the city. I was running the mail, turning people's computers on, accessing paper plans that people were looking for, just to keep the city moving and not slow things down. Early on in the pandemic, my daughter started high school at a local Portland Public Schools. I have a history of coaching volleyball. I played volleyball. There was an interest during COVID, say we were really short on coaches. Would you be interested in doing so? And I said this would actually work well. It was about an hour in the afternoon. I'm happy to do what I can. I actually didn't want to be paid for that service, but I was told as a Portland Public Schools employee that for liability purposes, I needed to be on the payroll for insurance purposes. And so unfortunately, I was unable to decline that small stipend that they were offering. And I regret having put my daughter in the car. It was a matter of convenience during COVID, not to have me having to go home and pick her up and go back to school, which was literally about 500 feet off of my commute to and from the office. As Ms. Marietta said, I did pay for 50% of the fuel. I was using the vehicle throughout the day, even in my commute, to run errands to employees by moving equipment, computers, chairs, supplies that they needed. So I was literally using the car on a regular basis to provide services to my team. This was not a benefit to me. And I wasn't trying to avoid paying for parking or anything else. I just physically could not access the garage with my personal vehicle. So that's probably more than you needed to know, but happy to take any questions or comments that the commission may have.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kruger. We certainly appreciate your candor. So in terms of questions to the commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Kruger about this matter?
Yeah, Chair Hollister, Mr. Kruger, you've been transparent with us. Was this transparent at the time of it as well? If so, how?
I was never hiding anything from anyone. I was very honest that I was here in the building. Everybody in the city that works with me knew I was here. I shared with multiple supervisors and colleagues that I was using the vehicle. I have letters that were from colleagues that were in meetings with me in the early part of the pandemic when I started to use the vehicle, openly aware that I was using the vehicle. The supervisor at the time was aware that I was using it. I have witnesses that were not included in the original audit that knew I was using the vehicle, and the supervisor at the time recognized that we were in an odd predicament in the COVID environment. Said, I understand what you're doing and I support what you're doing. Unfortunately, we didn't have that in writing, and it wasn't until a result of this case that recently did the city start to actually recognize that we needed to update forms to actually declare when we're using a vehicle. So those forms didn't exist, or if they did, they were over 20 years old.
So my read of the report was it sounds like, obviously COVID was an extraordinary time. And a lot of this occurred during the early days of the COVID pandemic. And it also sounded like if you wanted to fill out a form for personal use of a vehicle, there wouldn't have been one to fill out. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Ms. Marietta captured it well. The bureau that captured that reporting information doesn't even exist. I believe in my research, this was from 1989 was the last time the rules were sort of updated and made clear and a form was available. And if I even tried to, it wouldn't have gone to a organization within the city that existed anymore.
Gotcha. And that's fortunate. Well, thank you for being with us today and sharing those facts. Are there any other questions from commissioners about this matter? Okay. All right, so I think at this stage, we're ready to move forward to a motion.
Yes, Chair Holster.
All right, just a second. Commissioner Fiscum?
Madam Chair, the standard question, it would help me, maybe others, for there to be a quick summary of if we move forward, what exactly would our investigator be looking at beyond what the information she already has? Thank you for your report, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiscum. So I would want to talk to the supervisors directly, and then I would want to confirm some of the information that Mr. Kruger submitted, because there was a lot of it to go through. And I think also getting an HR report, which I would need a subpoena to do, which I can only do in the investigation portion.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, investigator.
Ready for a motion.
I have a snide comment on it myself, so.
All right. Since you're stuttering.
Yes. I at least scratched that itch, so. Chair Holster, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 2440401 and 2441201C.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on this matter from commissioners? Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion, so I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke's giving a thumbs up, Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
So, Mr. Kruger, we have just voted to investigate further. I think this is one of those cases where it's such a long time span and there's so many facts. We just need the additional time to button things up and really understand what occurred. So certainly thank you for your participation in the investigation and your candor. And our staff will be in touch with your counsel so we can move forward and get this matter resolved.
Thank you all for your time and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you.
Well, it's transparency. Great.
Okay. How are we doing, folks? Do we want to just move through and button up this executive session?
Yes.
Okay, we're feeling that way. All right. So are we ready for 72?
Yes, Mr. Ortega is in the room.
Ortega.
Or I am
Was the
in.
yes, was it with you? Okay,
Oh, yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't my state.
Mr. Ortega.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Ortega, I think you just joined us during a spray of laughter there, and I just want to assure you it had nothing to do with your case. So welcome to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. I'm Chair Hollister, and today we're going to hear your matter. I just want to walk you through sort of the steps that we're going to take when we're hearing your matter. So first, thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate you joining us. We are going to start our consideration by having our staff just summarize their preliminary investigation of the matter. And then we as commissioners might have some questions of staff, so we may ask those. After we've finished that process, I'm going to turn to you and invite you to make any comments that you might have. Because of the length of our agenda, we are limiting everyone's comments to 3 minutes today. And we might have questions for you after your statement. Sometimes we need some clarity on facts. And then once we're through with that process, we'll move to consider a motion. And there's only 2 options before us today. So we could either move to dismiss your matter outright, or we could move to investigate further. And oftentimes we do that where there's a lot of factual complexity. And we're not going to make any findings of whether there were any violations today. So that's, we can dismiss or we can investigate, and that's it. So with that, I think we're ready to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to Investigator Walker.
All right, thank you, Chair Hollister and Commissioners. For the record,
This is Monica Walker, investigator for the commission. Agenda item number 72 in your meeting books is a preliminary review report for an ethics case involving Phil Ortega, former student services supervisor for the Jackson County School District number 9. I will add that Mr. Ortega just sent a reference letter via email from a former colleague, which will be reviewed should the case be moved forward to investigation. Moving on, the complaint alleges that Mr. Ortega may have violated the use of office and conflict of interest provisions related to his outside business interests. According to the complaint, Mr. Ortega had established a contract with an entity called School Innovations and Achievement, SIA, for a paid percentage of software sales and service while employed by the district. The school district pays an annual fee to SIA's software to use their software. Per the complaint, Mr. Ortega was paid a commission to actively recruit other school districts to purchase the software, and Mr. Ortega did so while on school time and using school resources until his resignation in 2023. Additionally, Mr. Ortega founded a business with his family called Life Art. Allegations in the complaint assert that Mr. Ortega used his position with the district to obtain financial gain for himself and at least 2 members of his household through Life Art, including the disclosure of confidential student information to an outside organization so that that organization could apply for a grant that would allow them to contract with Life Art. Lastly, the complaint alleges that Mr. Ortega has or had district equipment at his residence for personal use. From staff's review of the documentation received, it appears that Mr. Ortega may have engaged in a prohibited use of position and failed to disclose conflicts of interest. But for holding his position at the district, Mr. Ortega would not have had access to district time and resources or been able to use his connections with outside entities and individuals to obtain additional work and compensation. Additionally, Mr. Ortega appears to have used district resources and equipment in performing work for his private business, Life Art. Further, there is no indication that Mr. Ortega ever submitted any written disclosures of conflicts of interest. Thus, it appears there is substantial objective basis in this case to believe that violations of the prohibited use of office and the conflict of interest statutes may have occurred. Therefore, the report in your meeting books recommends moving this case to investigation.
Thank you for that report. I'm going to go ahead and just preemptively ask, if this matter were to proceed to investigation, could you give us a summary of the matters you would investigate?
Yes, we would confirm the findings and seek to ascertain additional documentation, including records to show that Mr. Ortega was still earning commissions through SIA sales in 2023 when he resigned, and whether he did use district resources and time for financial benefit for his Life Art business, and if so, whether he submitted any written comment.
Thank you for that, Investigator Walker. Any questions for staff or investigator? Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair Hollister. I think I have a question for council regarding the commission payments and our jurisdiction regarding the sort of statute of limitations, I guess I would call it, on what we can actually investigate. I looked at the statute ORS 244260, and it appears to me that we are limited to investigating conduct that occurred within 4 years before a complaint is filed. And since the statute refers to conduct, I have concerns that we would be solely looking at the commissions that are still being earned from conduct that occurred outside that 4 years, because to me that seems like it's the effects of that conduct. And I'm wondering if council could speak to whether we have jurisdiction to investigate profit or earnings from conduct that has occurred outside the 4 years before a complaint is filed.
Thank you for that question. Who wants to take it?
Yes, I'm happy to take it. So yes, if the conduct at issue occurred more than 4 years ago, the commission would not have jurisdiction to investigate that. I think in this situation, there's a question as to, I guess, when the conduct occurred, when the receipt of the benefit occurred, and combined whether or not that rises to the level of conduct that is within that jurisdiction.
So can I ask a clarifying question? So if, let's say we were to assume conduct happened before or prior to our investigatory period, statutory, but benefit was received within the investigatory period only, would we have jurisdiction to over that?
Yeah, I think we'd have to look at that issue. What are the facts that relate to that? And so because the financial benefit is part of the conduct that that rises to the ethics violation, right? And so whether or not that
it seems to me like you can have ongoing conduct. So if I enter into a contract with you in 1970 and I get benefit from that contract until today, I mean, the fact that I have this contract, it's still in place, today. I mean, so I guess I'm wondering, it seems like if you have ongoing conduct, even though it started outside of the period, we can still consider it if it's ongoing.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's something we will look at it in could look at in investigation. But there's also the issue of seeing other school districts to come on board, and each time that conduct happened, was that inside of the jurisdiction? And then I think the question of when you accept the rewards of prior conduct, is that conduct? So
gotcha.
When I take the checks from it's not really ill-gotten gains, but from a prior action that I have.
So those 2 meetings plus the commission.
But this is, not just that issue. There's, we got property issues, we got other issues that are happening here too. But I think it's worth answering that question in investigation for the commissioner.
Okay.
I don't think it's come up before where we are really been asked the question, like it happens at this point, it's prior to 4 years, but you continue to benefit from that over our statute, inside of our ability to look at it. So anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you. So Mr. Ortega, we're just having a technical discussion about what's within our period of consideration. So I think we're all agreed that some of the facts here are outside of that period of consideration, and we're going to stick to the time period at issue. So thanks for your patience. Any other questions from commissioners? Yeah, I'm not seeing any. So Mr. Ortega, I would want to invite you to speak. And just to remind you, we're going to need to limit your comments to the 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to defend my position. Real quickly, I live in small town USA, Eagle Point, where everybody knows everybody. And I've been here for the past 23 years living in Southern Oregon. After leaving the military, I settled in Southern Oregon. I became a U.S. Marshal. I moved to a dean position at a local high school, and I've been working here ever since. Long story short, when Governor Brown came down to Southern Oregon to ask how we have been able to improve attendance and graduation efforts in our school district compared to the rest of the nation, as Oregon was second worst in the nation for graduation rates, we shared a proposal and she loved it. And since then, she had asked me and others to travel around the state to share our story of how to change the trajectory of young children graduating high school. That's how I got started with School Innovations and Achievement. All the concern here ended in 2019 as 2020 COVID happened and we were shut down. There was no more opportunity to go and share that information with ongoing districts as COVID, there was no access. I have not received any financial gain at all since 2019. And so the gain was on my own time, in my own position, traveling abroad at Governor Brown and then the state superintendent of schools, Colt Gill. He personally asked me to take this work on the road, and he would give me recommendations of districts that are asking for ongoing support. This isn't something that I came up out of the blue with. I was asked by state employees and people to support them. But I believe it's outside the jurisdiction, so it was prior to 2019. The other one about district resource, because I lived in small town USA, I worked for the same superintendent for 19 years, and it was very much supported. The idea that in 2009, 2 girls committed suicide. We wanted to provide a service. My superintendent, hey, Mr. Ortega, can you and your wife work together to provide a service? We did so. There was no conflict of interest. We were asked to by the local school district. But since then, people have changed. There's new leadership in place now. And the new leadership have different philosophies. I'm no longer at that district because of the change in trajectory of the leadership. I'm in a different school district providing the same level of service with other kids. What I learned about this process is that I should have had a written statement that my wife and my daughter would have been hired for the month of July offering summer school programming. That's what the question is. But at the time, my wife and my daughter don't work for the school district and haven't. So there, I believe there was no conflict of interest, but now learning the rules, learning the ethics, policies, I should have provided some level of written notice that my wife and my daughter would have benefited from working in this capacity. I'm learning as this goes, you guys. There's no, I'm learning as it goes. That's my statement. And last, I would say this, that all district resources that have been returned way back after, as soon as I resigned from the school district. And that was a company vehicle, company phone, company computer, company equipment that was all been returned since my resignation. So I don't understand why there's a complaint here, other than the lady that did make the ethics commission violation. I made a formal complaint to that school district, and I believe that this email to you was in retaliation because I believe that there was inequity at that school district, and that's why I no longer am employed there.
Okay.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega, for your comments, and thank you for your candor. Certainly, our primary mission here is to help educate public officials in Oregon, and so we want to provide those resources. It sounds like you've already learned a little bit about our requirements, and that's terrific. And so at this point, I think we're going to turn. Let's commissioners have questions for Mr. Ortega. I think we're going to turn to consideration of a motion. Any questions or?
Ready to make a motion. Chair Hollister, I hereby move to investigate possible violations of ORS 2440401, 2440404, and 2441201C regarding Mr. Ortega, agenda item 72.
Keep it that. So any discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion. I think there's some things to flush out, but I'm most interested in how the timeline of all of this relates to our statute of limitations.
Agreed. Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a comment. I'm going to vote yes on the motion, but I did want to say to Mr. Ortega that I commend you on the good work that you were doing, and this isn't a reflection on that. I also want to say we don't determine, whether people are motivated by retaliation and making these complaints. We don't determine employment violations. We don't make those sorts of determinations. Those are outside of our jurisdiction. And so, we can't comment on that. We don't make those sorts of determinations. So, we're just not able to validate or invalidate those sorts of claims here. And so I just want you to understand that although, there may or may not be an employment violation, that's just certainly not with what our decision is here today. And so, we're just simply here to decide whether, as you're learning, there might have been some, violations of government ethics laws. And, this is an education process. And a lot of people come here, and hopefully this may just lead to better education for you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Thumbs up.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner McNewell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, again.
I like it.
Commissioner McCauley. I'm so
Aye.
sorry. Commissioner
To get her some
We're
McDonald's.
having a time reading our own roll. Well, we're gonna get back to it though.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Hollister.
Aye.
Stays at 8. Motion passes 9-0.
So, Mr. Ortega, what we've done is we just voted to continue the investigation. So we haven't made any findings. I think we really do need to pin down the timeline here. And so I'm sure that's part of what we'll be seeking to do. And then we'll be in touch. Staff will be in touch so that we can get further information from you and move this towards resolution. So thank you for your time today. We really appreciate your attendance.
Thank you for your help, and thank you for at least offering the opportunity for me to present my case. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I promise I know how to say everybody's name.
All right. You've heard me lose it. Stop being able to talk. It's here too long. So it looks like we do have one more appearance. So is Mr. Alcorn, is it Alcorn? Alcorn.
I'm admitting Mr. Alcorn.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Alcorn. I'm Amber Hollister. I'm the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I just want thank you for joining us today. We are going to proceed to consider your matter. And I just want to walk you through how that's going to happen. So
Thank
first,
you.
we're gonna have our investigator just provide a brief summary of the preliminary investigation. And then we might ask questions of the investigator. At that point, I'm going to turn to you and invite you to make any comments you want to make. We're going to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes today, just because we have a very long agenda. And then
Thank you.
after, yeah, great. And then after that, we will proceed to a motion. We'll either move to dismiss this matter, or we will move to investigate. You probably already been informed that the recommendation here is to dismiss the matter. So we might move forward expeditiously with this to get to that result. I'm assuming that you are on board with that.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Thank you.
you're welcome. So let's go ahead and hear the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Hollister, Commissioners. This is Investigator Susan Myers. Curry County Commissioner Brad Alcorn, his wife is the executive director of the South Coast Humane Society. And that makes, because she is a paid employee, that makes the Humane Society a business with which he's associated. The issue in this case is the legislature passed a law that restricts pet stores from selling pet puppies or kittens or rabbits obtained from puppy mills or commercial brokers. And the law allowed a 5-year period for grandfathered store locations, but the law also allowed local jurisdictions to enact stricter requirements. So over the summer, the Curry County Commission was considering a ordinance that would restrict local pet stores from selling animals obtained from puppy mills or commercial brokers. The complainant in this case is an owner of a pet store in Brookings. He alleged that Commissioner Alcorn had a conflict of interest that he did not disclose, that he was using his position to benefit the Humane Society, which would make more money because the effect of the ordinance would shut down her business. Examining the language of the ordinance, however, it does not appear that the ordinance would have any financial impact on the Humane Society. It would not require her to close her business. It would simply restrict who she obtained animals from. Additionally, I examined the audio recordings and the minutes of the 3 meetings at issue. And it does, Commissioner Alcorn did, at least in 2 of those meetings, make a fairly extensive disclosure of his conflict, describing that his wife, he may not have actually recognized, he disclosed his wife's business, that she was the director. He said he didn't believe it would create a conflict of interest for him because she would not receive a benefit. While that's not necessarily the test, the nature of his disclosure was sufficient to alert the public that his wife was the director of the Humane Society. In the end, the recommendation in the meeting books is to dismiss because examining the facts, it does not appear that the action being taken would provide any financial impact to the Humane Society.
Thank you for that summary. Any questions from commissioners for staff? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Alcorn, this is your time to speak, or as one of my former professors like to say, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. So feel free to share your thoughts.
So I certainly stand behind all the information that's in the report. What I do want to say is I really appreciate everyone and all of your work that you do. And I also appreciate the good communication that I've gotten from Ms. Myers, and I appreciate the process. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Alcorn. We certainly appreciate the professionalism of our staff as well, and I'm glad that that was your experience. With that, are we ready to proceed with the motion?
Yeah, Chair Hollister, I hereby move that the commission find that the complaint against Mr. Alcorn, agenda item 73, appears to be insufficient to constitute substantial objective basis for violation, and hereby move to dismiss it.
Thank you. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Newell? Aye. Commissioner Mason?
Aye.
Commissioner Fiska?
Aye.
Commissioner Burke? Thumbs up. Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay?
Aye.
Chair Hollister?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Alcorn, for joining us today. Your matter's been dismissed, and so you'll receive a letter confirming that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day. I think we just have 2 own motions, and then we can come out of executive session.
Yes.
No.
Executive director.
No, we have the.
Oh, and then,
So,
that's right. Okay.